I will click on create deployment group, enter the name of your deployment group, any name you want. I will call it deployment group. Then come down here, then you have to enter a service role, right? And you must be created before you try to create your code deploy project. I have already created, but I will show you how you can create that. I call it EC2 code deploy role. So let me go back here, and I will show you how you can create that as well. So sorry, I don't know where is the, yes, it is here. The problem that you will face if you are far from where the AWS account is on, for example, if you are living in the USA or somewhere else, it will be very quick for you. But me, I live so far. I am living in Morocco, so it takes too much time to this page load, and the service created very quickly. That is why I have this latency issue. But if you are somewhere else, for example in the USA, it will be very quickly for you, and there will be no latency. So I will click on roles, then create a role. Then I have to choose the service, the code deploy service that is here. And then there are 3 use cases. The code deploy, first thing is when you use code deploy with EC2 instance, like in our case, or code deploy with ECS, that is Elastic Container Service, right? And there is the third one is the code deployed for Lambda function. In our case, we are using code deploy with EC2 instance, so we will choose the first use case. Click on it, then click next permissions. And each role has a policies, like there are permissions. And here we will choose default one that exists in this, for this role, right? There is only one. Then I will click on next tag, then click on review, then give it the name. I have already this role, so I will cancel here, and I come back to my code deploy. Then I go down here, then in the environment configuration I will choose Amazon EC2 instance, and to filter the instance, right? There is key, is the name, same thing that is here, right? We have name. We can have another tags. We can, for example, for the environment, we can the tag that has a key as an environment and value production or development or test, and then we specify that here. So the tags enable us to filter the instance or the service depends on the case that we are looking for or that we want to use. Then we choose Ansible server. Then go down here. We don't need load balancer. Then I will click on create group. Right? Then once you will click on create deployment, the deployment will start. But before we click on that create deployment button, we have to set something that is very important. Otherwise, this code deploy will not be able to work with your EC2 instance. There are two important things you have to pay attention for, and if you miss only one, the code deploy will be not able to communicate with your EC2 instance. The first thing that you have to do is to install a service called the code deploy agent. And the second thing is you have to create a role, and you can call it anything you want, and this role will enable your EC2 instance to read or to have access to the S3 bucket. Why? Because the code deploy in real life, what is doing? It is saying to the EC2 instance that is in your deployment group, please retrieve or pull the artifact that is stored in S3 bucket and put them in the directory that I have specified it here, right? So to allow your EC2 instance to retrieve the S3 bucket, we have to give it a role, and within that role we have to give it the permission to access to our S3 bucket and retrieve that stored artifact, right? But to our EC2 instance to be able to reach to this S3 bucket, we need network, we need internet, because IP S3 buckets in real life it is only an API. So like we must to call an API, just URL, and to call URL you must have an internet, right? So our EC2 instance it is in the subnet, in a private subnet, right? It could not reach the outside. But in our case, we have created the NAT gateway that will enable us to get to the outside, right? And it will enable us as well to access to our S3 bucket, right? But we imagine a scenario where we don't want to have a NAT because the NAT it costs too money, right? When you use the NAT, it will cost you too much money. So what is the other solutions to do that, right? The other solution is to use something, or to use a service called the VPC endpoints. These VPC endpoints do not communicate between your EC2 instance and S3 buckets publicly. Means that the connection between your EC2 instance and S3 buckets is made privately via the VPC endpoint. This VPC endpoint, I will not cover it in this scope, but I will cover it in my later videos. In this scope or in this section, I will go only with the NAT gateway. I hope that is clear for you. Now let me come back here and install this commands, or to run these commands on my Ansible EC2 instance. I have already done that, and if I check code deploy agent status, it's already running, right? And if I try to go to my EC2 instance, right, and go to Ansible server, and then go to the IAM role, I have already created a role, call it S3 read only role, and I have permission